In this video, you will learn what the category of Dasein is and how the infinite stands in relation to the finite. Welcome to my channel, The Realm in Thought. Dasein is now determinate being, and no longer the abstract pure being as at the beginning of the logic. Becoming had revealed itself to us as the movement form of being and nothing, of coming to be and ceasing to be. Since being and nothing pass over into one another and vanish, becoming is itself a vanishing. It collapses due to its contradiction into itself, into a unity in which being and nothing are sublated. Thus, through the positing into one of the two non-sublated moments, being and nothing, Dasein arises. Dasein is the result of the sublation of becoming. Sublation here means the negation of what precedes, but also the preservation and elevation of it. Becoming, with its movement form of being and nothing, is now rendered invalid. It has become inessential. Through this sublation, a higher and more complex level of the concept is attained. With Dasein, we have climbed one step further up the categorical ladder of the vertically structured Hegelian system. Thus, Dasein exists in the form of simple unity with itself. It is being with negation, being that is identical with negation. Every determinacy is, in general, negation. Determinacy, thus isolated in itself as being, as positive determinacy, is quality. It is determinacy identical with being.
Quantity, which will be discussed later, is also determinacy of being, but not determinacy immediately identical with being. Rather, it is determinacy that is indifferent with respect to being. If one changes the quantitative determinacy, a thing remains what it is. Whether I have 1 apple or 10 apples, the apple remains an apple. In contrast, if one changes the qualitative determinacy, being itself changes because it is immediately identical with the determinacy. Quality, by the way, should not be confused with the category of property. One might say, in contrast to quality, that a thing has or possesses properties. Although one could at times also speak of having in the context of qualitative determinacy, this is rather inappropriate since having implies a kind of independence that being, which is immediately identical with its quality, does not yet possess. A thing is what it is only through its quality, and if the quality changes, then the thing itself changes. Property, however, is a category of the logic of essence, and the thing that has properties is not bound to these properties. It remains what it is even if it loses a property. An apple remains an apple, whether red, green, or yellow.
Dasein now unfolds its content in the forms of immediate Dasein, finitude, and infinitude. Immediate Dasein contains the moments of being and nothing, but no longer as immediate, but as mediated, as sublated. Being mediated by nothing is now reality, and nothing mediated by being is negation. Reality is determinate being, and negation is also determinate being, but in the form of other being. Hegel calls this being for other, and the determinate being as being in itself. The determinate being, and thereby reality, is, for example, the apple. But the apple is only an apple in that everything else is not. And this other, which it is not, is its negation. Reality is thus only a very poor and abstract category. It is nothing more than determinate being. The two moments, reality and negation, cannot be thought separately, for otherwise reality would be abstract being, and negation abstract nothing. Both are thus necessarily mediated, and in this mediation of negation and reality, immediate abstract Dasein transforms itself into something that is, into a something. This something is again more concrete than abstract Dasein. Hegel calls this something the first being in itself. Through the double negation of reality and negation, the something contains negation within itself, through which it has positive being at all. It is now identical with itself. Being in itself and being for other are not separable. The distinction between Dasein and something is not easy to grasp. Immediate Dasein was only the positing into one of the non-sublated moments of being and nothing. The something now contains the dialectic of its moments, reality and negation, and thus immediate Dasein has further determined itself. Determinacy now becomes a limit or boundary in a something. Other being is not something indifferent external to it, but its own moment. Here, the contradiction of Dasein becomes clearly apparent. Being is identical with its determinacy, and yet again not. Only through its determinacy is a something what it is, and yet at the same time, the something and its elementary determinacy are distinguished. They relate to one another negatively. A something has reality only in its determinacy, and yet is separated from itself, points beyond itself to its own non-being. And this non-being, this other, it expresses as being and passes over into it. Through this, the something, in its quality, is now finite and also mutable, and thus we have arrived at finitude. The other is itself a something, because it essentially has determinate being, only in the form of other being. And this other as something becomes in turn another other, and so on into the infinite. This infinite progression is what Hegel calls bad or negative infinitude, for the negation of finitude ceases and arises again anew, again and again. Negative infinitude is a flight from the finite, without the category being able to exhaust itself or generate anything truly new. Here, however, the concept of true infinitude already begins to show itself, for something in relation to another is already itself an other with respect to that same thing. That into which it passes over is entirely the same as that which passes over, and they encounter only their like. Both have the same determinacy, they are other. Thus, something only passes over into itself, and thereby the being of the beginning, as simple being with itself, as negation of negation, is restored. It has now become being for itself.
From the self-determination of the category of Dasein, the dialectic of finitude and infinitude results. As unreflected categories of the understanding, they stand abstractly opposed. The infinite thereby itself degenerates into a mere finitude, for it bears a boundary in the finite. The finite, however, has now, through Dasein, been determined to perish. Thus it negates its determinacy, its negation. Consequently, it initially becomes only another finite, but that into which it passes is exactly the same as that which passes over. The finite thus returns into itself, and in this process, finitude and infinitude appear only as moments. True infinitude posits both moments from itself, sublates them in passing over into otherness, and in this mediation is with itself.
Let me now read the category of Dasein once in the form of conceptual notation. The sublation of becoming is represented as ceasing to be and coming to be. The bracket around and indicates the sublation, but sublation can also be represented without brackets, simply superscripted. The positing into one of the unsublated moments, ceasing to be and coming to be, is posited as a sublated moment, represented by the arrow and the sign for Dasein. The sublation of becoming is the positing of the proper name Dasein. The full proper and family name of Dasein is Dasein of becoming. In posited Dasein, becoming is not only preserved and elevated, but also sublated, that is, rendered invalid. The being and nothing that sank into Dasein are eventually excreted again by it, as Dasein with respect to the being contained within it, i.e. as reality, and with respect to its negation, i.e. as Dasein with respect to the nothing that has been sublated within it. The unity of reality and its negation is becoming, that is, the actualized becoming. The realities and their negations repel one another, and thus form the bad infinitude of Dasienden, entities in Dasein which relate to one another merely as a something and an other. An endlessly repeating alternation of something and other. They are each finite and end in themselves. Therefore, the finite ends. Finitude and infinitude appear only as moments within the unfolding of the category of quality. This is the true qualitative infinitude. Since something and other encounter only one and the same being in Dasein, and this being or non-being only encounters its own kind, the many Dasiende, or the ever-becoming Dasein, are sublated into a being for one. That concludes the category of Dasein and its transition into being for itself, which will be the topic of the next video. Thank you for watching and see you next time.